Hi everyone, welcome to another BricksMembers tutorial. Today with the second video about content structures. In the first one, I showed you how to create content structures in the backend and how to use them in the backend. But today I want to show you how to use all that data from content structures in the front end using Bricks dynamic tags, query loop filters, and the BRM post navigation element. Because using the content structures feature of BricksMembers actually gives you a lot of options when it comes to those. So let's get right into it. I want to start with Bricks dynamic tags here. As you can see in the documentation of the dynamic tags, in the reference one, there you find quite a few structure tags actually. Like we always have the BRM structure tag plus certain modifiers. So let's go through all of them. At first, you have the BRM structure next item and previous item. I think it's pretty self-explanatory what they do, but let me show it to you. Let's just add a text element here in our single lesson template and copy some of those tags. Now, for example, here we do have BRM structure next item. So let's paste that in. As you can see, it shows me the next item here. Like we're seeing in the post navigation here, next lesson would be Fusion page, and here it shows me a Fusion page. Also, when I go in the backend, in the front end now, there you see recommended DaVinci Resolve computers and specs, because that's the next lesson. So there, like wherever you want to show the next or previous lesson, you can do so. And you have certain modifiers. For example, I could add the modifier link now, and then what that does is it simply makes this title of the next post a link. I can also change that to URL, and then it will simply give me the URL of the other post. So you can also create your own link structure by using an A tag and then putting the URL and the title in there. You don't actually have to use the link modifier as I did before. That's, for example, useful if you need some attributes or so in your link. And next up is the level name modifier. Let's also copy that. It simply shows you the name of the current post type, essentially from the content structure. Here in that case, a lesson, because we're on a lesson post here. Probably not need that often, but when you need it, you have it. More important here is certainly BRM structure parent, because what that does is, I can show you that in the header here. Here we have course double point and then BRM structure parent top level. So what that does is it shows the course name essentially. Like when I go to the content structure here, and we're having a DaVinci Resolve course, then you see like the top level post is DaVinci Resolve Video Editing and Color Grading. That's the course name. We're also having a new feature here in version 0.95 where you can hover over that border here. Then it shows you top, indicating that that's the top level. When you expand that, it will also show you like level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, etc. Okay, we don't have level 5 here, but it goes down to 6 levels. So here, because I use double point parent, double point top level, it shows me the post title of the top level posts, which is a course in that example. If I would go to my series post type here, that would, for example, be editing breakdowns, because in that case, that's the top level here. Of course, you can also use other modifiers here, for example, level 2. So if I do that, then it would show me the module that we're in. Here you see now one introduction, that's the module, but of course that's not what I want to do here, so I undo that. And that's actually quite powerful if you think about it, because if you would create your own content structures with the native available features in WordPress, like using post hierarchies, for example, or terms or so, and this is always a bit more cumbersome, then you would have to query loop, and that would generate lots of queries and stuff. Well, here actually the code keeps it pretty minimal, like it's always just one database query and we directly have it. And it also all works together with the performance enhancements that we have in BricksMembers. So essentially, if you need a course name, for example, multiple times here on that page, then it would only query that once, and it would always read again from the cache. Like even if you don't have object caching on, it's still cached here per page load. So you never actually query more than one time per data type. And of course, you also have other modifiers here, URL, link, etc. I think I don't have to show that to you because you already know how to use modifiers, and we did that before. What's pretty similar though is also when it comes to the BRM video image tags here, when I click on that image, for example, because there you can also use the same if the post is within a content structure. Like as you can see here, I have the tag BRM video image top level. So I'm reading the BRM video image from that course, because again, the course is top level here. And when I open the quick edit modal, you see I have video image set up here. So I'm reading this image with that top level tags. So content structures essentially don't only affect the BRM structure tags, but also the BRM video tags. And that doesn't mean that all your posts have to be within content structures. Like if you have a normal post in WordPress, for example, or a custom post type that you defined by yourself, you can still use those BRM video tags, etc. But they will just not work in that case with top level or level 2 or something like that. So it's just not possible in that case to show that content from another post easily. In that case, you would also have to use query loops, etc. again, and that's why this is actually really easy. You just use the image tag, write top level behind it or whatever you want, and you get the image from the parent post that you defined there. And the next dynamic tag is the BRM structure breadcrumbs one, as the name suggests, that shows you the breadcrumbs. I actually have a pretty long one here, BRM structure breadcrumbs link current depth 1. So let's go through what each one does. So breadcrumbs, it essentially just tells it, okay, we want to have the breadcrumbs from that structure. Then link tells it, if you go here, that all elements of that breadcrumb one is, except for the current post, should be linked. So here, for example, that is the module. And if I want to go to that module, I can just click on that. If I would remove link here, that would also just be text, another link. And current defines that it should also show the current post. So for example, if I would remove current now here, you see the current is removed. So it doesn't show the name or the title of the current post anymore. And the next one that we have here is depth 1, which is new also in BricksMembers 0.95. And that defines the depth from the current post in reverse that you want to show in the breadcrumbs. What does that mean? For example, here now, I'm on a lesson post, and if you look into the structure here, I have a module and a course on top. And now the depth defines that I only want to show the module, like the introduction here, because depth is set to 1. Because in that case here, I already have the course name here in the header, so I don't need to repeat it really in the breadcrumbs. But let's show you that. Let's set it to depth 2 and reload the post. Now you see it shows me the course name again, DaVinci Resolve Video Editing and Color Grading, also linked, then the module, and then the lesson. So there you have full control about how deep you want to go in the breadcrumbs. Also quite powerful. You also have a few others here, like for example, the home modifier. That's for example, just if you want to have a home link as well. So let's reload that. Now you see home and then module. It's not exactly correct because I use the depth now here, home, and then the course name, then the module would be correct. But you get what I mean. Like there, you can simply also show the home page at the first item in the breadcrumb. There's one thing more to note about when it comes to the breadcrumbs tags, and that is that in the BricksMembers settings menu here, you can define the breadcrumb separator. In my case here, it's a simple slash, but you can define whatever you want to. Let's choose a menu for a minus, for example. And now you see it's changing to a minus here instead of a slash. And there are a few more. You can show the structure ID, which is essentially the ID that you define here on the content structures, like this one here. I think it's not that important usually, but if you need it for whatever, then you can also get that here via that tag. More important here is BRM structure index, because there you can show the index based on the sorting in the content structure of the current item. So for example, where that's useful is in that menu here on the left side. So let's choose that. Let's for example choose here index top level. Again, we're using top level, level 2, etc. there, because there now I could simply show the order of that current post here in that menu. Of course, you see now I have that twice here because I already have that integrated into the titles of my modules, because before I switched here to BricksMembers and creating my own page here, I had that on Teachable and before even another platform. So there I had to integrate that into the names, and I just copied everything. That's why it's twice here now. But yeah, usually if you would just set up your content with BricksMembers, then you don't have to integrate that into your titles like I had to do here in the past. You just use that BRM structure index top level tags, and then you have it already. And here in that case, top level is also the right one to do, because I show modules here. And of course, I want to show the order of that module within the current course, and the course again is top level. I could also use parent here in that case to make it a bit more dynamic. Then it always just selects the parent post. You see nothing changes here because the parent is top level in that case. But it's like, especially for such navigations, you oftentimes want to have it on different kinds of pages, like here in a lesson post template, but maybe you also want to have it on a module post template or so. Then using that parent modifier here would make more sense, because then you can just copy the sidebar to whatever page template you want and will automatically adjust correctly. And we also have an extension of the index tag, which is index max, and that shows you the total number of posts available. So for example, if I integrate that here, I could add a slash and then show like this is post number 1 out of 14 here in that case, for example, because there are 14 posts in that course. 14 module posts, of course. Of course, for a sidebar like that here, it would be a bit too much. But for example, in the header, if you want to show this is lesson number 1 out of 20 lessons or something like that, then this is actually a really nice way to do that. And we also have level index here. That's, for example, just to show level 1, 2, or 3 based on what post type you're in here. Like, you know, top level would be level 1, level 2 would be level 2, etc. Like simple stuff. Also something that's not super important, but maybe you need it in certain occasions. And yeah, these are all the direct structure dynamic tags. But as mentioned before, like other dynamic tags also use functionalities from those structures. Not just the BRM video tags, what I showed you before, but also, for example, here, if we look at the progress tags, there we also have BRM progress continue top level, for example. That would mean that you want the student to continue with the next post after the last completed one within a current course or a module or whatever. So there you can also select top level or parent level, level 2, etc. So that again is why it's so important to use content structures whenever needed, because there are so many features in BricksMembers that rely on that, so that they always know, okay, in which course I am currently, in which module, etc., and that you can display all that data dynamically. If you think about it, it's quite powerful, because you can really create as many structures as you want. You can name all your post types exactly as you want, and then you can display all that content with Bricks Builder in the front end in exactly the same way as you want, what makes it quite powerful. But let's come to the next part now, which is the post navigation element, or BRM post navigation element. And when it comes to that, I have to give you a clarification here, because we do already have a post navigation element here natively available from Bricks Builder, but this element does not work with the content structures. So this is actually a good example here. I am in the first lesson of that DaVinci Resolve course, and when I scroll down, you see I can click on a previous lesson. Like that would be color grading in another course, a Creator Crash course, and that's probably not what you want. Maybe you don't want that lessons of another course are being shown here in the post navigation. Maybe you want to stick within the course or within the module. And as you can see here in the native Bricks Builder post navigation element, that is unfortunately not possible. I could not find a way to integrate it natively, and that's why I decided to essentially recreate that element just so that it works with the content structures. So this element is called BRM post navigation. And now in the BRM post navigation element, you do see a lot of stuff that is familiar, especially all that stuff here at the bottom, but also some newer ones. And that's especially the navigation boundary that's important for content structures. It's by standard set to parent level, and that doesn't work here. Let me save that and go to introduction here. You see it doesn't show anything. This is because I'm on a lesson page now. I show parent, as we can see here in a structure. There is no other lesson in that module, and parent would mean module because on a lesson page. That's why I have to change that to top level. And as you can see, it shows only the next post now, no previous post, because there is no previous post within that course. Of course, there's a little styling issue now. You see it's left aligned. I will update that in the defaults for the next version, so you don't have to do that. But well, you can see what it does here. So if I click on the next post now, then you see we have previous post and next post. So it all works beautifully here in our content structures. But let's now come to the last part that I wanted to show you here, what makes it so powerful, and that is query loop filters. Now, a good way to show you that here is actually that modules sidebar, which has actually two nested query loops. We first have a query loop that loops through the modules and shows them all here. As you can see, like here are 14 modules in total. And then within each module, we have a second query loop that loops through all lessons within that module. So let me show you how I did that. At first, if we go into here, you see I have a modules outer, that's a UL element. And then within that, I simply have a div element here, which has an li tag. And there I run the query loop on. So let's have a look at the query loop. They have post type module, because that's important. All these posts here within those content structures, these are actual custom post types, and you can do with them in Bricks Builder or wherever you want, whatever you would usually do with your custom post types. So you can also select them here. And then order by menu order, that is really important, because the order that those posts here use, all posts, doesn't matter the post type or the level, they always use menu orders. So go by menu order if you want to display them in the same order. And then ASC, of course, if you want to have the opposite direction, then DSC, of course. But ASC is what you would go for by standard. Post per page, doesn't really matter what you write there, but well, we want to limit that sometimes, right? And then when you leave that query loop pop up here, then you can scroll down and you see here that there are now all the BricksMembers query loop filters. You maybe already know them from other videos and tutorials regarding user level match, etc. But here what's important now when it comes to our content structure is this one here, the within structure boundary one, like by standard that's deactivated. And when you activate that, then you see this boundary level box here. And there it says parent level, because again, like this is the more dynamic one. So I can just copy that sidebar to any post template that I want to have, and it will always work. Now what parent level means essentially is it looks up the current post type, which is module in that case, because we run the query loop on the module post type, and it takes the parent from that, and the parent of module is course. So in that case, it would limit the modules by course. So it would only show the modules that are within the current course. If I would deactivate that here now, or if, let's just deactivate that. That will be a mess now, because then you see now it shows me all modules that I have, maximum 99, of course, because I said that before, from all courses. So it's not limited anymore. There is no boundary. So let's turn it on again. I have it set to parent level. I could also set it to top level here. In that case, it's the same. Reload the page, and then you see here, it only shows me the 14 modules of the current course because of top level or parent level. And now, of course, I can have all my content in here in the module, like the post title, etc. But then I go one level deeper here to lesson wrapper, where I have an OL list, the sorted one. And then we have the lessons here, which is another query loop element. So you see here, we have one query loop element, and then within that query loop element, I do have another query loop element for the lessons. So if we open that, you can see post type lesson, also again menu order and ASC, and again within structure boundary parent level. Now why parent level works here again, I can use parent level both on the lesson post type query loop and also the module post type query loop, because now it takes the parent from lesson, which is module, so it shows only the posts that are in the current module. And of course, it uses the post that we are inside the query loop here. And of course, there are other filters that I will talk about in other tutorials, like drip, progress, etc. But what's also important to mention here regarding content structures is that you oftentimes want to turn on the enable batch loading function together with preload structure links, because if you have any data in here that has anything to do with the content structure data, then that will reduce the amount of queries to your database, because then we batch load all of that in one query. So whenever you have such data that is related to content structures in your structures, just turn it on. Same goes for progress, drip, like video data, etc. That greatly enhances the performance. of your sites where you run query loops. And yeah, that's all you need to know when it comes to the content structures in in BricksMembers. And yeah, if you haven't done yet, then also check out the backend video about content structures. I will link that here if you haven't done it, because that's important to set everything up before you even go in the front end and use all that data. And if you have any questions regarding BricksMembers and also content structures, then feel free to ask them in the comments. I will answer them as soon as possible. And yeah, I'm out, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.